thank you for joining us, and thank you for your time. There used to be a day in the world where we could just talk about what was happening in the world once a year. We planned the next year for our company. We were all stable. We were rocking along. And I'm sure that you guys are like me and that you reinvent yourself every couple of minutes now. So we thought it was important for us to stop mid-year and share what we see going on in the world and what we're hearing. We did this in January, as we always do, and a lot has changed since then. So first of all, demand remains high. That has just increased since COVID. I think there's several reasons for that, but demand for our services is high. Tuition rate tolerance has softened a bit. So there were record increases just after COVID. We'll talk more about that. We've kind of normalized and softened on that a bit. There are new state and federal initiatives, mainly state initiatives, but a couple of federal initiatives that we want to talk about and share. I wanted to hit all the 5 pillars of financial health that I like to train on. So I want to have a brief conversation about how changes in your discounting load might be a solid strategy with tuition rate softening. We want to talk about the trends in salaries. We've done a recent survey on that, and we have some hard data to share with you guys that really confirmed what we've been hearing from people. So we're happy about that. The fact that the news isn't great all the time, but the fact that what we're hearing is indicative of the industry was comforting. We want to talk about the 5th pillar, which is the second biggest expense load in most companies, the rent or mortgage payment. And then we wanted to mention continued insurance challenges because it's just on top of mind for a lot of people. They're really struggling with challenges with their insurance renewal and insurance costs, and that's impacting a lot of people's financial health. Demand remains high. So demand for services fluctuates. You know, this is my 39th year in the industry, and I've seen times where demand was low and unemployment was high, and of course times like this where unemployment's low and people are working. I know the challenge you guys are having with staffing right now. Personally, I would rather have the challenges we're having now. We can create strategies for our staffing. However, I don't know how to get people to use our services if they're not working. So I'd much rather have a time of low unemployment and difficulty in hiring and develop strategies around that than high unemployment with people not working and low demand for our services. So on that note, our first poll, and I invite you guys to go over to the poll icon. You should see that poll pop up. And this is, simple question. If you have a school, are you fully enrolled? Yes or no? If you are not fully enrolled, would you be if you had more staff? So we regularly hear from our clients that I could be, if I could have a more stable staff. So that's a typical response from people. Thank you. Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So typically we get a mix of, yes, I am fully enrolled. I would be if I had more staff. No. Would have been good if I had a choice that said no, because I don't have the demand. Would be interesting. So the beach is winning. Okay, July is tough. Yeah, it's summer. I guess I would say to you guys that if you're generally fully enrolled, maybe not right this second, but interesting. So we are regularly hearing people who are fully enrolled or would be if they had the staff. Rarely are we hearing the answer that the demand is not there. So we're continuing to hear stories about big demand and just more, continued trouble hiring. So during COVID, we saw record tuition rate increases. So as an industry, and you guys can see that I'm hitting the 5 pillars. So I'm hitting occupancy, tuition rates, discounting, staff salaries, and rent or mortgage. And whether those are greatly changing or noteworthy, I always mention those 5 because in my teaching and in my opinion and in my history, if a business owner or a manager focuses on those 5 things, then they can get 95% of the way to financial health. I'm in the process of finishing a book that will be launched at Shift. The book is on the 5 pillars of financial health with applications and strategies and implementation tips. And that's another thing I've had in my head forever, and I got too painful not to do it when we launched Boost, because all of the proceeds of the book will go to Boost to support preschool teachers. So it's my hope that that content helps you guys in the work that you're doing. It's also my hope that it supports Boost, and I feel led to mention all 5 pillars in every teaching. So on our tuition rate increases, historically companies would raise their tuition once a year and for the effects of inflation, which are usually 3 to 5%. After COVID, we saw such increased expenses, mainly in staff salaries, but also in other areas, that in order to balance the very delicate financial picture in their companies, then business owners had to rethink how their tuition rates were supporting the actual cost of care. So I talk a lot about cost of care, and cost of care is different than here's what everyone else in my market charges. Historically, the industry has looked at the other providers in the market and set the tuition rates accordingly. There are issues with that strategy. The first issue is, are those people competition? Just because they provide services in your market does not mean that they're competition. They're only competition if they're providing the same quality and the same quality building and doing it as well as you are. I love it when I regularly hear from business owners that there is no true competition. Great, there shouldn't be. You should be the best. So that's the first issue. The second issue is you may be comparing yourselves with people who are living in fear of setting their tuition rates at the actual cost of care, or maybe they don't know what the actual cost of care is. And I invite you guys to use the Framework app. It's a free app, frameworkbyhinge.com, to play around with our free benchmark and set your tuition rates where they, play around with alternative tuition rates until you get to the point where you can be financially healthy according to the benchmark. So that's one tool that you can use to set your rates at the actual cost of care and not just what is happening in my market that may not be covering my costs. There are a lot of people who are propping up on grant funds and other support that may still be having some of that cash left over, and they're still living off of that. But until we're able to either charge parents the cost of care or advocate for government support that pays the cost of care or supplements the cost of care, then our well-being is in jeopardy. And without the very system that creates stability for families and businesses, then that is a really scary thing. So tuition rates are really important. And as we saw, instead of the typical 3 to 5% increases that we historically have had, they were more like 8 to 12% during and immediately after COVID, and sometimes more than once a year. We do have some strategies for catching up. That'll be in the book, but reach out if you guys need help with that, because there's a limit to the amount of time that you can not charge the actual cost of care and survive in your company. So we did start hearing, up until this year, we regularly heard from owners that when this mainly relates to private pay communities, that parents were receptive to the bigger increases to support staff wages at a higher rate. This is a really difficult concept in schools that parents need help in the form of government subsidies, which are typically finite and may or may not, in most states, pay the actual cost of care. So that is even more difficult there. We'll talk a bit about government support that's coming. But I'd like to do our second poll right here, which is, are you able to be financially healthy? And to me, financial health means pay your teachers a decent wage, be able to reinvest in your company in the form of new offerings and repairs and upgrades and possible growth, with where your parent tuition or your subsidy tuition currently is. Are you able to be financially healthy, or is it still a struggle to get this ship balanced? So we regularly hear from people that we speak with that they can make it, but it's difficult to really invest at the place they want to. They have to sacrifice some things, that their financial picture is not as stable. We regularly hear from some people that they can't make it at all. And then there are some who are perfectly able to balance that situation now. So it looks like kind of 60-40 responses. And that's mostly good. We certainly would be happy to support with anyone who needs more information about what strategies can I put in place to be sure that this balance that's always been challenging is a little bit easier to manage. So not surprised at that response, and also happy to support with anyone that might be having a struggle with that. There are some new federal and state initiatives that are in the works. I will start with the state initiatives, and my very, 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 very favorite one. I'm such a big fan, and I love that it seems to be growing. There are 6 states in implementation and 15 more states in investigation of a strategy to pay for the child care of early education teachers. This is a mind-blowing, fantastic strategy. And what I love the most about it is that it has a 3-part benefit. So it benefits the school as a recruiting tool. It benefits the teacher, who is generally paying half of their child care. So industry norm is directors at free child care, teachers at half price. There's more liberal use of these strategies with hiring today, and I'm a fan. Before COVID, I was preaching some limits. Maybe some of those still work for you, but What I would prefer you do is get rid of other discounts, which we'll talk about in a minute, and perhaps be a little more liberal with your staff discounts. But then, of course, that helps the teacher's financial picture as well. So the school's recruiting, the school's financial picture, and not having to discount half or all for children, and then the teacher's financial picture. So I adore this strategy. So that's good. Love to hear from you guys about what you're seeing. So Marissa telling me to see the question and answer box. Thank you, Marissa, toggling back and forth. Key pre-K graduates who stay for June but fade out through July. Okay, really interesting. All right, I'll jump back over to you in just a minute because we might need support on that strategy. So federal initiatives on the way that flow through your states were announced in February related to subsidy tuitions. I love these new strategies and new things that I see coming, because it's really, really difficult to be able to operate in a predominantly subsidy situation in your business, where tuition rates very often don't pay the cost of care, and business owners have to compromise the situation they know would be better for children. So 3 things coming, and states have 2 years to comply. And I suggest that you find out from your state legislators what their plan is for complying, because some states are already in implementation and some we know will wait the full 3 years. So the first initiative is that parent contribution should be limited to 11% of that parent's pay or income. I'm sorry, not pay, but income. Love that, because what that implies is that we'll see higher reimbursement rates. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the tuition will be paid on time, which means in advance, right? So the cash flow crunch is really difficult especially for single schools, when they have to wait 30, 60, sometimes 90 days for the cash, when they've already had a very heavy expense load. And the third thing that may move the needle even more in certain states is that the tuition will be paid based on enrollment and not attendance. So really difficult for schools to only get paid on attendance when you're having to continue to have those expenses, whether the child comes or not, and then you only get paid for the days that they choose to attend. So those 3 things could really move the needle in the financial picture for schools that support subsidy populations, and could expand the care options for parents who need that support. So I'm excited about those opportunities for parents. If you guys have other initiatives that are happening in your state, we'd love to hear those too, because as we share all of these initiatives, then it allows people to hear the fantastic ideas and to go back to their own state and say, hey, New Mexico's doing this. What do you guys think about it? And it's going to take us all educating our own policymakers to be sure that we get the right strategies out. I always mention discounts, because discounts in my mind are a hidden danger in our financial picture in this industry. Here's what I mean by that. The majority of business owners will record in their billing system the discounted tuition. For instance, let's say a school charges $200 a week and they are discounting a certain parent group 10%, which would be $20 a week. So what they do is charge the $180 in their system as tuition. And there's no way for them to quickly see the financial ramification of that decision. And I'm not saying discounts are bad. I think they're fantastic in some areas. However, I want you guys to have the information that you can make good decisions around and what you choose to discount. So I want you to charge the stated tuition rate, in this case, $200. Then I want you to add in a discount, in this case, $20, so that your billing system will show you on the report of your net revenue what it's costing you to discount that category. And I'll give you a couple of examples. We very often will do a valuation for a business owner. And we'll go back to that business owner, and I am not over exaggerating these numbers, friends, but we'll say, did you know that you are discounting for vacation days and military and this business and that other thing, $120 a year? I'm sorry, yes, $120,000 a year. You know, we never suggest that people mess with their staff count discounts, but let's say the rest of it was $80,000 a year. What could you do with that $80,000? You know, could you hire 2 more people? Could you get a floater? Could you pay your teachers more? Could you invest in a new curriculum? There's so many opportunities for that. And you might choose not to do that. You might say, I like discounting for those parent groups. I feel very passionate about that, and I'm going to do it, and I support you. That's great. Just know the effect of the decisions you are making. And I'll share a couple of more recent industry trends in discounting. So we mentioned staff discounts, and I do not suggest you mess with anything related to the well-being of your teams. It's too important to be able to attract those people. I would just say help them with whatever sources there are outside of your school to pay for their childcare. Can they get subsidy support? Can they, where else can they get support so that perhaps it doesn't cost them half of their tuition, or you half? So don't mess with that one. Many, many years ago, the industry moved away from any free or vacation days. And what I mean by that is the children don't come and they don't have to pay. Even if you say to me, the people in my market are still doing it, I'm going to say back to you, this is your first area of opportunity. Consider eliminating that discount from your expense load. Now, one thing you might want to do is you might want to communicate to parents, communicate. This is our tuition rate increase. This is in order to keep up with rising staff costs, we really need to go up 10%. In order to support parents, we're going to go up 4%, but we're going to also eliminate vacation and free days. It's a good way to communicate. So what are you doing? What is your mission? How does this change in their economic situation support your mission? And then do it and stick with it. And, you know, they'll be happy you didn't go up 10% on their tuition, and they're going to forget next summer that they don't have vacation days, but just suffer through that first year and make it happen. Another way you could do it, if you really are fearful of the financial impact of that, or feel like you might lose families and you just, can't tolerate that, then grandfather your current families, and new families coming in can pay a higher tuition rate or not have the opportunity for certain discounts. So you can do it that way as well. I prefer you just do it. Otherwise it takes about 4 years to get the full effect out of that, out of your expense load, because you have to wait for those children to age up. Some other things to think about that are common discounts. You might be discounting a certain industry. I would just say if IBM is next door to you and you discount their employees 10%, what is IBM doing for you? Is it a true partnership? Because if the answer is nothing, then they would probably, the families would probably be coming to you anyway. So go to IBM, tell them what you're doing for their employees. Ask them to pay the difference. Ask them if they'll promote you to their employees. Ask them if you can borrow their maintenance man. Ask them if they will cut the grass. Ask them if they'll donate supplies, something. Just my suggestion is to try to make that a true partnership. So think about your discounts in conjunction with your tuition rates and use that as a tool to understand the impact on your revenue and also to possibly use eliminating discounts as a move toward greater financial health. Now, we did a salary survey recently. I bet a lot of you participated. We sent this out to our 5,000 company database. We felt like we got a good representative sample. And what we heard was similar to what we have been hearing out in the world. So here are a couple of slides with the results. The first one confirmed that the majority of businesses have experienced about 30% increases in their pay rate since COVID. That is huge. 30% increases in the area that we already spent 45 to 50% of all parent and subsidy tuition dollars on have increased now 30%. We regularly hear from our business owners that it could be as much as 50%. So that was basically what we got. Very few people experienced no increase. A healthy amount were 1 to 20%, with the majority being 21 to 30, and also in second was 31 to 50, and some over 50%. So huge effect of salary increases since COVID. Our second question was, what percentage of your revenue are you spending on salaries? We believe that a healthy benchmark is around 45%. That includes the director, not the owner, unless the owner is also the director, but the school director, all of the staff, their regular pay, their overtime pay, their vacation pay, their holiday pay, their PTO, anything that you pay them. And you can see that it's incredibly hard now. Not surprising with the increase we just talked about, to not be at 60%. So over 60% was the majority of the response that we got, with the second place being 45 to 50%. We asked those owners how they manage staff costs, because we have some historic strategies that we have shared, and we found that those have not changed very much. So most people use manual systems. Most people track them as a percentage of revenue and not a fixed dollar amount, which is our suggestion, because as revenue fluctuates, that means enrollment is fluctuating, and your dollars spent on salaries also should fluctuate. And some people use the support of a computer program. So what we typically hear is that owners would use their computer system to print out children's schedules, and then they would match up their staff schedule with that. So that's the typical strategy that we hear. If anyone else has a great strategy, we would love for you to share that. If you have a great computer program that you just flip a switch and you get it, I would love to hear that as well. I don't pretend to know or keep up with computer systems, so love to have your input there. We also heard when we asked, what is your primary strategy for managing staff cost, that monitoring the hours that staff work was the #1 strategy. Obviously, hours convert. The second strategy was allowing staff to go home early. I have talked about this one for all of my career, that the 15 minutes here or there really add up. We're in an environment, I give COVID credit for a couple of really positive things. And one of those things is this workforce loves their work-life balance. And I don't say send them home, because you can't compromise people who really need their hours. But if you train the staff and the managers by walking around, management by walking around, and train the staff to say, hey, our ratio's down to the point where someone can either clean up and leave or do different tasks, or I can't wait to go home, then you're creating a better work-life balance for that team. And usually somebody is like, yes, me. I would love to leave early. I have things to do. I'd like to go to the gym. So that is a great strategy. And again, no longer sending them home, but giving them the opportunity to go home. And COVID did a beautiful thing for us there. About 19% are taking a close look at pay rates, and we have to do that. But also, we're just in a time where the market is demanding a certain level of pay, which means if you have incoming staff at higher pay rates, of course, that means you have to adjust the pay rates of everyone. So that makes it especially tricky. We asked what other strategies people use, and they could select as many of these strategies as they use. We heard mainly using floaters and assistant team members effectively. So I really like that. Those are our support teams. Those are people who can fill in anywhere and relieve teachers. They're assistant teachers who can fill in and support. Love those two strategies, and it has created a bigger necessity for over hiring and having floaters available. Also, since COVID, we have more absences. So teacher absences are bigger, and it's created the need for alternative staff who can go in. We did also hear limiting, we heard management teams in the classrooms. I have to say that, sometimes there are emergencies, but I am not a fan of putting your management team in the classroom on a regular basis, because what happens is you start to compromise the very revenue base you need to afford the floater that could be in the classroom instead of the management team. And it's more pressure on that manager, and it's already a tough job. So we did hear more support for directors. We've even heard companies allowing their management teams to alternate and take one, director, assistant director, take one day a week to work from home. They can get some things done better at home. It gives them a better work-life balance. You just have to be sure the school is covered, obviously. But it alleviates some of the pressure. So finding strategies to remove some of the pressure from directors and assistant directors. And then other things mentioned are raising tuition rates. So I say to people a lot, are you solving the right problem? You can't manage your staff costs. Maybe you're doing the best you can. Maybe you can't do anything different with hours. Maybe you are paying what you have to pay. Then the answer is, you're not actually charging the cost of care rate. And maybe you're in an area or with a parent group where there's a limit to what they can pay. But at least know, what is the actual problem? Is it you're overspending, or is it your tuition rate isn't sufficient anymore to balance the cost of care? Combining classes at the end of the day, using admins as subs. Don't do that regularly. Outsourcing admin tasks to virtual assistants, love that one. And Those were the things we heard there. Anything else to add? We got comments like other staff costs have gone way up. Yes, they have. The cost of recruiting, hiring, benefits, the cost of culture building. So culture building has never been more important. You are never going to pay people enough for pay to be the only answer. And that has been true in the whole 39 years I've been around. It's at a different level, but we've always said we're never going to pay people enough. That pay is the only reason they're here. And it's pretty much free to make people feel great about their work and to appreciate them and to show them the value in their work. It's just critical today. We heard that grants saved people. We heard that it's harder running the business now. We heard it using administrative teams in classrooms. We heard enrollment is the key to reducing your labor percentage, and we agree with all of those. So I'd love to hear from you guys if you have other strategies, but we're doing a lot around being able to share ideas on what's happening in schools and what things you guys can do to help the financial picture. I like to mention the renter mortgage because it's the second largest expense load. There's some great strategies for renegotiating your rent, and there's some great strategies for a little bit harder to work with lenders right now because interest rates are so high, but we do have some that we can share with you guys. But think about how your rent or mortgage payment aligns with healthy benchmarks. Use the framework app for that. The framework app, you will input your average tuition rate and your license capacity and your current occupancy, and the benchmark will populate and it will say to you, what does the average financially healthy school in the US make and spend in each category given my size and my tuition rates and my occupancy. Now, every school's a little bit different, so it's a benchmark, but you can use it to compare yourself and set a budget. You will probably see that you're having trouble getting to the historic salary benchmark, and I'm getting asked a lot, are you going to change your benchmark? And the answer is no, I am not. And the reason I am not is the answer to all this craziness is not you guys are going to be less financially viable. I refuse to accept that. And I will say that I am the advocate of you, the business owner, because I don't think you have many. There's some, but you don't have many. Families have a lot of advocates. Teachers have a lot of advocates. Children, and they should, they have a lot of advocates. But I have dedicated my life's work to being the advocate of the business owner, and we have to find a different way. You can't suffer anymore. It's hard work, and I won't accept that. I will go down fighting with you. We will figure this out, but that can't be the answer. So no, I'm not changing my model. Insurance challenges. I don't really know what to tell you guys about this, except there are some good strategies for working with your insurance company in a proactive way. And I love some of those ideas. Reach out to Hinge if we can share some. We would love to tell you what we're hearing. And, you know, this is not our work. We just call on the experts. And we've gotten some great information about proactive strategies you can take to be sure you don't get into a situation where your insurance company finds the small thing that happened and uses that to either not cover you or increase your premiums to the point where it's just really difficult for you to stay in business. But it is a problem and seems to be increasing. So we'll be talking more about that this year. And that is the end of my content. I know that you guys have put some early start. Hey, Sam, thank you for being here. Early start early and create a narrative. So Samantha has some great ideas on insurance proactivity. I hope I'm saying that well, Samantha. But what I love about it is it's not just a let's all complain about what's happening. We can do that. We can do that too. We can do that with, we can also do it with staff salaries. Let's complain, let's get it out of our system, and then let's do something. You know, I want to accept that there aren't things we can do, strategies we can share with each other and put in place to make things better. Sean, hearing many stories of insurance carriers no longer offering coverage to child care centers. Yep, we do too. Hate that. And then also insurance companies watching licensing violations. Samantha's amazing. I agree. You guys probably see Samantha Phillips here. I was just about to say, share your information. Thank you for doing that. You just went one ahead of me. Massachusetts is offering vouchers for tuition for teachers, grant funding to the centers, full pay vouchers, even if they don't attend, college tuition to obtain up to your master's, and up to $30,000 tuition forgiveness. Wowza, we all want to use Massachusetts as a model. It is a powerful strategy when you get, when you see other states implementing successfully to take that information to your own state. States love to watch what other states are doing, and if they've seen it done successfully, they know there's a model out there. So that's fantastic information, Noelle. Thank you. Tammy's from Oklahoma, representing Licensed Child Care Center Association. Thank you for the work you're doing, Tammy. Our child care associations all over the country are rocking it for us. ECEC is doing the same thing on the federal level. We're going to have the federal liaison and the state liaison at Shift. We'll be talking about what's happening. We have to ask them weekly because it changes really quickly. In Delaware, they just passed the next fiscal year to have low-income families reimbursement rates to be equal regardless of where you live in the state. Interesting. They up the amount of missed days per month to 10 and cap the parent copay at 9%. Interesting. I like the cap on parent copay. I would like to see, regardless, no missed days per month. GCCA plans to include expanding assistance with childcare tuition for employees as one of our legislative priorities. Yes, Jamie, go. We love it. Without the grants at the subsidy schools, it would be harder, but we can continue to receive grants. I hope so. I hope so, Mandy. I hope those keep up. The name of the app is Framework by Hinge.com. Let me jump over to our Q&A. See if we've got a couple of things here. Would love to hear any strategies to keep pre-K graduates who stay for June but fade out through July as they vacation and head to public school. Okay, love that. Love it. I'm going to throw that at our implementation team and see what strategies we can share with you guys. I'm excited about this. So Sheila Lewis is a person who's been in my work world for probably 30 years. We worked together in a former company where Sheila still is, the Sunshine House. Sheila is the support person for challenging behaviors in their company. They have about 120 schools. Sheila spoke at Shift. She was a big fan fave. She's got some very practical ways for you to support your staff with the strategies. It's really difficult with the increase in children who are struggling with behaviors in classrooms. So that, not that it isn't hard enough to hire now, but then our teachers are dealing with more difficulty in the classroom. So join us for that on August 14th. So thank you for joining me in this important conversation. We hope to see you guys soon. Reach out to the team at Hinge. If we didn't cover something that's of interest to you, or you have a fabulous idea, because that's what we're doing. We're just talking to people all day long about what strategy, things they see in the market, what they're doing about it, and how we support each other to be as financially healthy as possible. So take care and be well, friends, and let us know how we can support.